Okay, so I'm Tom, and I'm going to be talking about, well, 3D Ami. I've given it a descriptive title. What I will say is I do have too many slides, quite a lot of video. I won't get through it all in time, but do ask questions. I'd rather only get halfway through and answer lots of questions than just me talking and then, rushing and all the rest of it. So, ask questions. So, 3D Ami. We're a summer school. We run in the UK. Sort of started summer holiday. We've been going since 2012, and we've had 11 separate teams, each go and make a film. And the first year we ran, the budget I'm going to claim was 500 quid. It's more complicated than that because Nesta, their organisation in the UK, went around and gave out some travel bursaries to some of the students. And we spent about 300 of that 500 quid on ensuring the computers we shifted from a college to where our event was, because we had to insure them. Budget this year was a bit bigger, £45,000 per student. And then if you add in all the in-kind donations, because we run at universities, you give us a whole load of stuff for free, it's hitting 100k, it's literally twice that. And this year we had 2 locations, salaries, etc. So essentially, 3D Ami is this thing, it started small and it's getting bigger. And it's free for the students, and when I say it's free, it's always been free to attend, lunch has always been included. This year, because we had such a large budget, everything was free. They got food, they got accommodation, everything. So, we have this principle that it's free. I mean, it's not free to run it, but it's free for the students. And, the title says this, but just to be explicit, the goal of the students is they come for 7 days, they make a short film, and they do it from scratch and then have a premiere on the last day. So this is high pressure. First day, they have nothing except we give them a theme. I'll get to that. Last day, they better show a film. And just to really hammer this point home, we don't pull any punches here, they do everything. So they write the script, they do storyboarding, they do the concept art, they do the props, the sets, they make the characters, they rig the characters, that's probably the hardest part. They run simulations, we have even had code written, although amusingly enough, a lot of the simulations don't make it into the film and get cut and replaced with hand things, and the one time we had code written, it didn't quite work, so we cut it and replaced it with simulation. They do the animation, rendering, compositing, editing. They have a certain amount of help, but we try and get them to do everything. And so the point I'm making is we're really pushing them. We do let them download textures and we do let them do audio. It's not an audio event. Now why? This is a somewhat nebulous slide. So we sort of exist at this intersection of the technical and the artistic. So we run in computer science departments, but we're sort of getting students from a broad range. So we have students that go on and do fine art at university, we have students that go on and do computer science, and we have everything in between. And so there is this real, we want to get this broad range of students working together on these projects. And part of that is because it's real teamwork. This isn't an event where every student learns the same things independently, this is an event where every student learns different things, because they're working in a project, they have to finish their project, and they need to learn all the things that go into and result in making the film, and some of them specialise. So you will get one student who goes off and does half the textures, for instance. And they also learn about the filmmaking process. And just as an aside here, we have more than just the making of films. We do have visits to VFX houses in... Most of what I'm going to talk about is London, because I did the London event. And London has the slight advantage of having Soho and all the VFX houses. So we went to Saw Frames this year, they won in Lost for Gravity. We had Rare come down from Birmingham. They made GoldenEye 007. I think they do Kinect games. Anyway, enough just to make the point of what they actually make. Here is a supercut of all 11 films, where I've taken all 26 minutes and 11 seconds and squished it down to 1 minute and 56 seconds. production, high quality film, but the fact they can actually make an entire film yeah, you get all the credits now. A lot of people put a lot of time into all of this. You can actually get there, you can actually make a film, show to the premiere all in 7 days well, it surprised me the first time we actually did it. So yeah, I mean, AD's sitting there, he was doing the last talk and he was involved this year. So, this talk, what I'm going to aim to do is sort of tell you some of the lessons we learned. Essentially, if you're doing something similar, so you can avoid making some of the mistakes you've made. Sort of, yeah, an initial approach versus current approach kind of talk. It is a bit scattergun in the sense that I'm going to talk about lots of random things. And, you know, I could talk about this a long time because there's been a lot of lessons and I'm just sort of picking up on big ones or interesting ones or stuff I think fits in here, as it were. Talk a bit about the future and also just hoping they've been talking about this. I'll encourage people in the audience to do this kind of thing or get involved. So, I sort of already covered this. First year, there were 2 of us, and we literally walked in with no plan. We set up the night before, as in we literally turned up with a van the night before containing 20 computers in a space in Teach First's office next to London Bridge, and we were just like setting up a network, and we were there to like, I think, midnight or something the day before, and then we were like, we need a render farm, and I wrote a render farm during the event. I mean, it was that level of chaos. We've learned a lot since then, and yeah, it was very close that year, and I actually had to sit down and do the final cut of their film because they ran out of time due to a rather stupid thing where we stuck the premiere location, a 2-hour train ride, at least for a group of students, away from the event location. This year, a bit more serious, a lot more planning, lots of staff, lots of cash. And yeah, all teams finished themselves with help. So yeah, I was there first year. Pete, other guy, he was there first year. But this year we had, each location had a teacher, a blender head. So I did London, AD, and Chris McFall, who I don't even... I need to say hello to you. I've literally never met, because he did Bath, and I did, they sort of split Bath between them. We had a student helper at each, although the student helper from London was having so much fun, he just then darted over to Bath, and so we had another 2 student helpers at Bath. We had an extra teacher at London, and a general rule of thumb is you have as many staff as teams plus 1, and that means you can have 1 member of staff talking to each team at any given time, and then 1 person to roam the room. Students? Oh, interesting. You see the whole slide, I don't. I have a problem to last time. So, first year, we had no selection process. We did let any students come. So the selection process was somewhat ad hoc, and a lot of it came down to the fact that Pete at the time wanted to run this event as an extension of the summer school, a after-school club he was running. And so about half the students were from there, and then we scored the other half by recommendations from teachers. And there's an Animation 12 competition run by Manchester in the UK. It's this competition where students go and it's some animated work. And so we took some of the winners from that. And yeah, we had some bad students in there, some students who just didn't do anything. And that was part of the problem the first year. But most were good, so we came out lucky in a sense. That's a photo of, yeah, everybody from the first year at double negative. This year, and indeed every year since the first year, because we quickly realised we needed to do something to actually select good students. Students now have to submit a portfolio, much like you would you actually want a real industry position. And the main point is it proves they want to be there. And by proving they want to be there, we know they're going to turn up, we know they're going to put the effort in, because they put the effort in to come. And we do require that at least 1 item must be made with Blender. We're not after a lot of work here. Indeed, probably the most common thing I see is like a really basic 3D modelled car with like 20 faces rolling along because we have a tutorial that makes them do that. But it proves that they are willing to open this app. They're not scared of it. They can understand the basics and they can follow tutorials. And it essentially means we don't have to worry about that sort of low end or the possibility that the student's going to be there the entire time and not making progress. And we always ask for more work. The point of asking for more work after they've submitted their portfolio is not that we really want more work, it's this test of, are you going to listen to feedback? Can you respond in a positive way rather than closing down and not doing anything? Because this event is high pressure, feedback can be, from other students, it can at times be quite harsh. So, yeah, it's still not 100% reliable, we still get the occasional turkey, but yeah. So, yeah, following on from that, our attendance is almost spotless. In fact, I know of only one instance of us losing a student for reasons other than illness, and that is that student got a job and wanted the cash, so who can blame them? They do work hard, I mean, really hard. I've put an extra 2 hours each day. That is almost limited now. We try and limit it. I know Bath this year didn't have that limit in. Things were the accommodation and the student halls. But in London, we tend to sort of force that limit just so they do stop. And the first year we ran it, we were at the Teach First offices, and there was no time limit. I mean, there was staff on the door at all times. We were kicking them out at 11 p.m. because we needed sleep, they needed sleep. It got a bit insane, so we tend to try and do this. And yeah, stress is a problem. They work so hard that they do hit up against it, and they do still turn up when ill. And yeah, it's about the portfolio system, it's their film. They care because they're making their film. They have ownership of the project. And they care because they proved they're people who care. We don't get lazy students. Of course, the downside is this is not an event for everyone. If the student's not willing to put that initial bit of effort in to come, they don't come. It's that simple. So yeah, we do marketing now. We didn't used to. It takes time to build up the contacts. That's our poster from this year. So there's some basic statistics. We had 200 applicants. 50 went on to submit portfolios, and 45 were finally accepted to come. And you notice 50-45, it's not a big gap. We actually do struggle. And we get this weird symptom by which you send out this adverts to, we probably hit something like 700 schools, and the vast majority of our students come from like 10 schools. And so the conclusion is that most schools aren't passing it on. I don't know why. I've got some guesses there, but you know, it's guesswork. So teamwork is probably the most important part of the event. They're not working on their own, they're working in groups. And that has the effect of peer pressure. They don't want to sit around and do nothing because their friends are not sitting around doing nothing. And it also means they can get a lot done. For those taking photos, I am going to put these slides up on my website, just to save the effort. So first year, we didn't really do much to organise the teamwork. We did try and vote in a director, but we didn't even give the director any guidance in what they needed to do. And so they really didn't do that much. Students would ask them questions, and there's a lot of shrugging. We did get producers. That was totally ad hoc. 2 students essentially took it, identical twins in fact, took it upon themselves to start going around and finding out what everybody's doing and organising a team. And we then went from that and said, the following year, we're going to have producers, we're going to have directors, but we're going to actually tell them what they need to do, and we're going to act as sort of a next layer of management. So we are standing there and we're giving them advice, and then when they don't do it, because that can let down the whole team, we subtly add extra roles, like an executive, an assistant producer, or a art director if the director's not very good at art direction. Or you can do these clever tricks to not insult anyone, but nonetheless get it done, as it were. But the point here is we do actually have students doing management. They are managing each other, they're learning from that, and essentially we're just getting to do everything. So quickly, the responsibilities of the producer, planning, time management. I mean, the producer's job is to make sure the film's there for the premiere. That's it. They run the dailies, talk about that in a minute. They keep an eye on the big picture, make sure the team's communicating, take point of problem solving, which I mean they identify problems and they find the person who can solve it, not that they solve the problem themselves. Director is, so producer's a bit different from what you'd find a real producer doing. We call it producer because that's just what they did. The director, on the other hand, is pretty much a straight director job. It's no different from what normal directors. Now, team size. This is one of those random slides I just dropped in. We've settled on 9. First year we ran with 12 because we really didn't know, and it's literally, we ran with 12 because we got 12 students. It was that simple. But as you add more students, they can do more. But then you've also got to take into account the team aspect. Then most students at this age group, 14 to 18, they haven't done team projects before. They've never even contemplated managing another student before, as much as they manage. And so they are, to a certain degree, dysfunctional. They don't have that sort of professional structure or way of approaching things. And so you can't have too many, so there's this balancing act between the two. And 9 seems to be a good number. If you have really good students, I reckon it will work with 6, but occasionally we lose a student to illness, and occasionally a student turns up and turkey, to use the... I'm not sure that's a polite term or not, but it's the term I'm using. So, probably the most important, beyond the teamwork aspect, is this idea of peer teaching. We only have a finite number of staff in the room, and this is not everybody learning the same thing. It is everybody's learning different stuff. Everybody is focusing in and learning what they need to get the bit of the film that they've said they're going to get done. And so we do emphasise students teaching each other. So one student gets taught by a member of staff, possibly the year before, and then they come back and they reuse that knowledge. And then when some other student asks the question, we say, go talk to that student. And the point of this is the student that we originally taught gets to then explain it, and that reinforces their knowledge. And it also really encourages communication, it encourages the sort of teamwork aspect. It's just, it works really well. And yeah, students specialise, I just said see knowledge. So each year, at least in London, Bath was this year a new event, so all the students were new, and I think we had a few problems because we ran the event the same way we ran London, which is to say we didn't plan for the fact we didn't have as many students in the room who had been before. So each year we probably get about a third of students back. We distribute them evenly among the teams, and this means that in each team there are some students who have done it before. And that's really helpful because it adds sort of another layer of staff in there. And it also means these students can sort of improve their knowledge. So, they come the first year and they just make props, and they make some sets. The next year they come along and make a character. The next year they start rigging. And so they build up their knowledge over time. We do hit a weird problem here that we sometimes make improvements to the event. We find that teams doing it the way we did it last year because the students did it that way last year. And yet, we don't tell them to be quiet, we tell them to be as noisy as possible. Shout. So, scheduling. First year, we knew we had to have a script writing storyboarding day, which doubled up as ice breaking. So, you've got 9 teenagers, they've just met one another, you need to get them talking, get them communicating. And so the first day was the script writing storyboarding, and we organised that, we run that. That's not them under control, and it's then the second day when we flip and let them take over. As much as we can let them, we will step in as need be. But yeah, for the first year, we didn't know what a good schedule was. We didn't know when stuff needed to be done by, but we did know we wanted to have a premiere on the last day, because it dials up the pressure and it gives a chance for everybody to... You bring in the parents, you bring in their brothers, sisters, you make an event out of it. And we had the mention earlier. So this year, it's much more, we know what they need to be hitting when. And I'll give you the full schedule in a second. But yeah, we still have first day script writing, storyboarding, that we put a bit more emphasis on concept art now. Second day we have a technical talk and a linking tutorial, because linking is the thing that the students have the most struggle with doing this, at least within Blender. They vote in the producer and the director. We did experiment with the producer and director earlier and later. If it's earlier, they don't know each other yet. If it's later, then the second day tends to end up being wasted because there's no one organising it. So either we have to play the role of producer and director on that day, or they do. And if we play the role, they don't really take over from us. And yeah, we announce what they should get done each day, and I will show you what those announcements on the next slide. And yeah, on the last day, it used to be where I said, right, I want the film by 6 o'clock because the premiere is starting at 6:30. They would come along, I'd hit render at 6 o'clock, and then the film would still be rendering whilst they're introducing it, which is not a joke, that actually happened. That was fun. I was literally going, keep going, to the guys who was introducing it whilst I was downloading it to my laptop, and I wasn't downloading a complete file, so I was downloading it not knowing at what point it was going to cut out when we played it back, and we got it just as the credits started. It's sheer luck. Then, after we all went back and ate food, went back and watched the whole film with credits afterwards. So targets. Script writing, storyboarding, concept art on the first day. This is where we're actually really organising it. The next day is primarily about get the animatic. By animatic I mean we take their storyboards, we photograph them and they time it in the video editor. And they populate the asset manager. I'll mention that later, but you go through, you list all of the assets you're going to need to make the film. And you start assigning to people, and you start work, of course. So by day 3, we want at least one set, one character. So that has to happen to start on day 2, because the characters are the hardest, most time-consuming part. And then day 4, sets of characters. Day 5, half the shots, animated, rendering overnight. Second half the shots, rendering overnight. Fixed problems, compositing, credits, audio. They don't ever follow this schedule. I mean, we give them the schedule, and they're always at least running about a day late, which means that the fixed problems section is usually, we don't have time to fix it, we'll roll with it. And compositing sometimes gets dropped entirely, and the credits often have mistakes in. But, hey, it's having fun. So, dailies are relatively new, and they were originally introduced because students were getting stressed, and we needed a reason to make them have a break. It was that simple. And we thought, well, we'll make them have a daily midway through the afternoon, so they can have a break at lunch, and a break at, I think, the other thing we stopped doing is lunch at desks. So it used to be we would let them have lunch working at their desk. We've now forced them to actually have lunch elsewhere, so they're not in front of a computer and they actually have to stop. And so, yeah, it was stress, and it works for that. But we do let the producers run them, so as you get later in the event, you will find there might be 3 or 4 dailies in the day on the last day. I mean, it can get that hectic. But they aren't really dailies in the usual sense, in that they really are more of an organisational, working out the timing, who's doing what, that kind of thing. Most feedback tends to happen around the computers with small groups of students. And, dailies traditionally about feedback. So, script writing. Now, script writing, you would argue, is not that important to the project, but a good script motivates the students, so it does matter you get these details right. And so we probably spent more time in script writing than any other part when it comes to refining the event, because we struggle the most with getting groups of teenagers who've only just met to write scripts that don't suck. First year we were really bad at it. We gave them an awful theme, and you'll see what I mean by an awful theme next slide. And we did design by committee, and every good idea in the room just vanished. There were good ideas in the room, and they just got committed out. It was terrible. It was really quite depressing, actually. There were some great ideas, and just for them not to actually try. So now we work a system where each student separately writes a script, and then we vote at the end for which one they're actually going to make. And yeah, there's this heavy feedback structure. They get lots of feedback on the scripts, and indeed one of the selection criteria for a script, not explicitly but implicitly, is that a student who doesn't respond to feedback isn't going to win that vote. So students have to be willing to improve their script. So they write their script and they're stuck to it and they don't move, they're not going to get voted, and that's a good thing. So themes. 2012, the Olympics. I'm not going to name you can probably work it out, the large special effects house we asked to choose our theme for us, but we never asked them again. 2012 was the year the Olympics were in the UK, and the problem with a theme like that is everybody thinks the same things, it's too, you just end up with a bunch of shots of sporting there. So next year we chose Summer Never Comes. I still don't know where that came from. Better, it's got a certain degree of ambiguity, and if you look at the film, it's actually quite varied. The problem is that we do find that teenagers are really good at making depressing film scripts. So you want the theme to be as positive as possible, otherwise, yeah. Going Home is a fairly positive thing, but one of the teams still managed to come up with a script that involved 4 plane crashes. We said no to that. And yeah, Empty Space is possibly a touch negative, but yeah. So, yeah, the last 2 are song titles, you can work out the bands. So, as I said, we put a lot of effort into script writing. It's a heavily regimented sequence of events. And so we have this phase 1, which is, you'll recognise if you know what brainstorming really is as proper brainstorming. They go off and they quietly come up with ideas, and then they come back and they talk about it. So there's none of this shouting across the room, because that just means the loud people talk and the quiet people say nothing. And that theme persists through this. There's this pattern of quiet thinking on your own, followed by discussion. And so then phase 2, they convert their ideas, or possibly ideas of others, they're allowed to steal, and they make a bullet-pointed film script. And when I say bullet-point film script, it could be literally 3 or 4 bullet points, just, sentence summaries of the key points in the film, and one in the character usually. Then they do feedback in pairs. So pairs of students sit down, they both explain their film to the other person, and then give feedback on it. And they do that several times, and then they have some time to convert it into a proper script. Then it gets painful. This phase 1 and 2 I'm happy with. Phase 3 onwards I'm less happy with. They're not quite right yet. So the students discuss their films and they have a vote and choose which one to keep. That, because you've got 3 students, often what happens is they all vote for their own film. That doesn't work. Phase 4 is phase 3 includes another round of improvement. But phase 4 is then you do another round of this. You've got 3 films left because of 9 students. And then you do it again, present it, and vote. And the presentations at this point are encouraged to be, they stand up and they act it out to their team. And that's very good for spotting problems. In phase 5 is sort of another round of improvement, and then 6 is concept art and storyboarding. So, yeah, I've sort of already touched on some of this. Script writing is hard. It's not the point of the event. We're not selecting students for their script writing ability. And so, yeah, they're not good script writers. Most of them have never even written a script before. But it motivates, it encourages next year's, and it helps us with funding to get good scripts out. The most important thing, it motivates the students, because we want motivated students. And so there's this nasty, if you do the maths, about a third of the teams fail to create the script immediately. They hit some serious problem. Now, often the staff can step in and recover. Sometimes we literally do have to throw a script out and start again. The one I gave of 4 plane crashes, we basically turned around to that and said, no, you're not doing that film. You can't do 4 plane crashes, and this should be noticed this summer when the Russians shot, or one of the 2 sides shot down that passenger plane. And it's just like, that's the most politically insensitive, bad plot. No. And so they would go and switch their second script. It got second place in the vote. And they did. And they spent the morning of the second day going through and just quick storyboarding that. So yeah, you do get these issues. Storyboarding concept, on the other hand, we don't generally have a problem with. Once they've bashed out the script, they usually they just do the storyboard really fast. And concept art, they usually don't do enough, but they do some. Film length. We tend to make it 60 seconds. It ends up with an average of 2 minutes and 25 seconds. 3 seconds, 20 shots, blah, blah, blah. My favourite film is the shortest film. This probably says something about the process. They want to bite more than they can chew. That's nature of students, nature of teenagers. I don't have a solution to that. Yeah. We go into technical limitations. These are copied directly from the slides. They're shown. No more than 3 characters, no more than 3 sets. Avoid complex effects. And veer towards cartoony rather than... But I want to change that line because we're only getting cartoon. And they could do stylized. Props and sets are fine. The biggest problem with props and sets is when the students who should be working on characters go off and do props and sets. I talked a bit about the culture, so I won't say much more about that. As strong as students who work on characters. And characters are, if you have rigged a character, you've got to model it, you've got to get the topology right, you've got to rig it, you've got to test the rig. Testing is actually often the thing they fail at. They do the rig should work, but they don't test it, and then they go into production, and suddenly you find that the elbows are there, which happened last year. And so there is a film, if you go watch a train film, you'll know that the character never bends his arms in the entire film, even when he's holding on a laptop while sitting down. That's what happens. So now the result of it is I now check the rigs, and I stand there and say, right, bend that arm, try doing that, verify that it actually works. And it's where most hand-holding occurs. Animation, they're not great at it. Most of them have never done it before. Animation is hard. So we do encourage tricks. These tricks are actually great because, animated survival's guide, but YouTube video reference. So there's a film in there, the baby film, where all these babies are running around and stuff. And so I was walking around this row of computers and it's all teenagers sitting. Every one of them has YouTube videos of babies doing stuff, and it's just the most surreal sight ever. Recording own reference video. So we had students running around, and we even had the team that made the snail film shoot the entire film live action with one of the students pretending to be a snail, which was great. And I'm going to show you the premiere intro in a bit, and there's this great shot of the students working out how a caterpillar should walk, and they're trying different leg combinations and working through and working out is it that way, or is it hop that way, or so on. Animatic, so you photo storyboard, you put it in, but then you improve. And this is something we constantly encourage, incremental improvement. Get something that works, and then make it better. Polish. I'll go on to polish in a second. And yeah, we have multiple deadlines and all the rest of it. And yeah, OpenGL renders, all the rest of it. Polishing is something there isn't time for. The films are not polished. In fact, many of the films you look at, it's like another day's work can be way better. Especially because shots get dropped, often critical shots, and that's never great. I do worry about teaching bad habits, because we had 2 teams of students this year after the event go on and make 2 further films online, just because they could, because they knew people who could do it now. And both films suffered from the exact same lack of polish, yet they were working online, they had no time limit, and so I worry that there's a problem there. Yeah, we do asset management. We started with a spreadsheet. Now we have a proper web app, which also has integrated render farm. There's nothing more to say there. I think I'm probably out of time, but yeah. Render farm, this is fun. We had a 2,000 node cluster at UCL this year. That's an expensive asset. And so the teams were running 20-minute per frame films, which when you consider it is, they are making a short film, but those are actually comparable to a real film studio, because they have to get it done and all rendered in these last 2 days. And so we were absolutely hammering UCL Computer Sciences cluster. But it's important, because what happens if you don't have a good render farm is students render on their own computers and they can't use their computers. So they're sitting around, they're screwing around, they're messing around, and the few students left trying to get the film finished, the last few shots, are distracted, and it causes all sorts of problems. And so, yeah, we run in computer science departments at universities because they have the resources to run this kind of event. Obviously, they have to go through. So yeah, we have a premiere on the final day, and this is what puts the pressure on. But it's also, celebration. Students do introduce their films. We have free beer and food. And yeah, the London crowd, we get about 100 people turn up. So yeah, and we also create an intro video during the event. The staff do, which is then used to embarrass the students and stuff. And I'll show you the one for London now. that sort of summarises the event, and that's sort of the thing. I'm going to spend a few seconds to talk about why we choose Blender, and it is a choice. We could choose another piece of software. So it's free, necessary, but so is a lot of competition. But the important points come out, so low hardware requirements, they're important to us. We target, I haven't really talked about where we get our students from, but we get about a third women, and we get, I don't know the exact statistics of that, but yeah, basically white boys in a minority. And so we target students from poorer backgrounds as well. And they have to deal with crappy lockdown computers, and so trying to get an IT department at a school to install Blender can be an issue. At least in the UK it can. Interface is not a problem. I know people complain, but people complain about interface for two reasons. One, because they haven't used other software and realise it's just as hard. Or two, they're used to the interface of another program and they're not used to Blender, so they don't like it. The reality is, if you give Blender to a student, they're fine. Not a problem. But the most important one, at least to me, is it's a complete pipeline. We don't have the resources to, have a pipeline technical director, someone who works out the conversion from, if you did Maya, then go to ZBrush, and back again, and then get into Nuke, and get into Final Cut for the final edit it. We don't have resources to do that. Blender does it all in the same file format, and that's really valuable for us. Blender observations. Basically, the work for a project is exactly what we want. Improvements. Oh yeah, you may have seen in the video, we have a book, if you want to have a look. Have a look. And yeah, I'm speeding up now, so yeah, we do a certain amount of experimentation each year and we try and improve it. So future, last two slides I think. How we've survived this long is a mystery to me. But cash is hard. I mean, getting that 45k this year took a lot of work. And we have competition that seems to do a better job of getting the cash than us. I'm fairly sure we're better. But obviously we want to grow, we want to obtain sustainability. And yeah, we need permanent staff, we need multiple sources of funding, and we need enough locations. So we're aiming for 4 next year, we'll see how it works. We have a person working on improving our website to include portfolio systems, tutorial systems. I don't mean tutorials in the sense we're going to make tutorials necessary, but in the sense of helping students find the tutorial they need and giving them feedback in a process by which they can, get better. Book will grow. People have been talking about doing a computer game variant, and we also have some work for young audience. So we have a thing for secondary schools, and we're going to be trying out primary schools very shortly. So, to end on a good note, what have some of our students done? So you have one who's working right now as an intern at Double Negative. They're the largest effects house in the UK, Harry Potter, Batman, long list of films on their credit reel. Another one is at California Institute of Arts. That's the one that gets referenced in pretty much every Pixar film, because so many of them. We've had university requirements dropped. They go in and do fine art, through to computer science, everything in between. They've made 2 further films after this year, out of their own film. One was for a BBC competition, the Doctor Who one. And this is despite the fact that most of them, because we've only been running for 4 years, are still at uni. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't think there's any time, because I think I'm 12 minutes over. Sorry about that. But questions?
One question only.
Make it a good one.
Okay.
Have you thought about doing anything that's more to do with effects rather than purely speed up the process?
Well, I'm not actually convinced that would speed up the process, but ignoring that, it's a matter of resources, and also the competition I referenced, that's what they're doing. They're doing visual effects, and they're much more hand-holdy about it, and they sort of end up with a day in the blue screen room, a day doing mocap, and so it loses some of this student-driven aspect to it. Because the moment you have serious resources, a studio is not a resource you can just throw around willy-nilly. A motion capture studio is expensive, and we have mocap studios at both UCL and Bath. We have blue screens at both UCL and Bath. We have these resources, but we can't just, reserve them for an entire week for students to use. And even if we did, I worry we'd spend a lot of time cleaning up mocap data. We'd spend a lot of time doing all sorts of things, and then the ultimate product's going to be a bunch of students acting in front of a blue screen. I don't think they'd have the same enthusiasm for it. I don't know. But as I said, the competition is sort of trying that, so we'll let them see how well they do. And We're more interested in the 3D animated films, and possibly trying out computer games, which again we can give them full control over. Control is important to us. I'm going to do a second. Sorry. At the end of the day, it's to educate. The education is not necessarily direct in the sense of, we have a list of things that the students learn. So every student's going to learn to composite, every student's going to learn to 3D model. It's very much they're going to learn to work in a team to solve a problem. And so students do specialise, and each student is going to have to get to a certain depth on one of the subjects. And, we do keep a very close eye on them, and we do a certain game of, why doesn't this student do this? Because we want to push that student hard. And you do get students sometimes, if they find something they're good at and they don't want to do anything else, and so we always have to push them. But at the end of the day, we're trying to teach them the mindset, the team skills, and the technical skills to make a 3D animated film. And those are fairly general skills. I can make all sorts of arguments regarding computational thinking, which is how we flip it into a computer science sort of facility arrangement. And you can do things like compositing as a form of visual programming, and you can make all sorts of arguments about what kind of reasoning skills they are learning. And in all cases, it is very much divide, conquer, how to put things together, and this mixture of both the technical and the artistic. As I mentioned earlier, STEAM. It's a better acronym. I think we probably should end it there because I'm rather overstaying my welcome.
Thank you.